This is a Candy Factory Mini. So you want to write a book? With Suzette Mullen.
Hello, I'm Suzette Mullen, book coach, nonfiction writer, and your host. Welcome to So You Want to Write a Book. My goal is to break down the challenging process of finding and getting clear on your story so you can finally take action on the book that's been rattling around your head or tugging at your heart. Even if you never plan to write a book, I'll share tips that will help you become a more informed reader and a more effective writer in your work life. If you have questions, email them to me at hello@yourstoryfinder.com or feel free to comment in the post and I'll get back to you. So go ahead and grab a pen, paper, phone, or laptop to jot down some notes and let's get started. Today we're talking about writing an effective memoir. Let's say you have a personal story you're burning to share with the world, but you're worried that the world's read enough cancer journey memoirs or abuse memoirs or addiction memoirs or you fill in the blank memoirs. How do you know if your story's worth writing? How can you make it stand out from all the other memoirs on the same subject? Now, I've mentioned the following story before, but it bears repeating. On a podcast, an editor from one of the big 5 publishing houses said, "I'm looking for books that are both exactly the same and completely unique." And she laughed, but she meant it. I believe it's when we look at the intersection of completely unique and exactly the same, that's where we'll find the key to writing an effective memoir. So let's dig in and unpack what this all means. There are 2 ways your memoir needs to be exactly the same. The first is figuring out the category your memoir belongs to. Agents, editors, and publishers like to put books in categories and boxes. This is how they know whether they can sell them or not, whether there are readers for those types of books. So here are some common memoir categories: cancer journeys, addiction, abuse, trauma, grief. I read a lot of grief memoirs. The travel memoir, the food memoir, coming of age, spiritual journeys, coming home to self, and more. When there isn't a clear category for your book, it makes your book more difficult to sell. I ran into that problem with an earlier draft of my memoir. One of my colleagues said to me, "I'm afraid an agent's not going to know what to do with your book. Is it a coming out story, a spiritual book, a book about writing? Since they can't easily categorize it, they're going to probably pass on it." Now the problem was my book was all of those things at one point or another. And now, as I revised my manuscript, I got more clarity on what my book was about and consequently how I wanted to position it. While Graveyard of Safe Choices still has themes related to coming out, spirituality, and writing, it's the story about a midlife journey of learning how to listen to and trust my inner voice. So it's a midlife journey memoir. So write an effective memoir. You need to know what your memoir is about and understand where it belongs. That's one way it's exactly the same as other books. Now, the other way your memoir needs to be exactly the same is this. It can't just be about the things that happened to you. Your memoir has to have a universal message. So this is where inexperienced writers really get tripped up. They think their book's about what happened to them, not why it mattered. Their manuscripts read like this: and then this thing happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, which turns into a deadly recitation of facts that frankly no one cares about, except maybe your family or friends, unless you make meaning out of them. I point this out to my book coaching clients constantly. So Wild isn't just a book about hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. It's about picking up the pieces after a tremendous loss and finding yourself again. Making Toast isn't just about grandparents taking care of their kids after their daughter dies unexpectedly. It's about the human capacity to move through and live with grief. And Without a Map, this isn't just about a teenager forced to give up a baby for adoption. It's about coming to terms with betrayal and eventually finding compassion and redemption. So I want to sit with these examples for a minute longer and why this is important. I'm never going to hike the Pacific Crest Trail by myself like Cheryl Strayed did in Wild, But like many of us, I've experienced tremendous loss and had to pick up the pieces and find myself again. Her story gives the reader hope that it's possible to pick up the pieces and find yourself again. Now, I hope to God that I never experienced the loss of a child like Roger Rosenblatt did, but I've experienced deep grief, as we all will in life. And seeing how Rosenblatt navigated this grief by putting one foot in front of the next, of getting out of bed and making toast every morning, helps the reader feel less alone in their grief. And without a map. Now, I wasn't a teenage mother. I never had to give a baby up for adoption, but I've been betrayed in my life by people who said they loved me, as I'm guessing many of us have. And I know the bitterness that can eat away at you if that betrayal isn't redeemed eventually. So Meredith Hall's story shows us it's possible to move beyond the bitterness of betrayal. So effective memoirs are exactly the same in that they have a universal message beyond the facts of what happened. And that's what the reader connects with. So what about the other part of the editor's statement, that your memoir needs to be completely unique? Well, that one's a little easier. 2 important ways to make sure your memoir is completely unique. First, it's your story. Your story's unique. You're the only one who's lived it. No one else has lived this exact story in this exact way. If you write compelling scenes with specific details and dialogue, your story will come alive and meet the uniqueness test. Now, someone else could hike the Pacific Crest Trail by herself and her story would be unique to her experience. Someone else could lose a daughter and have to take care of their grandchildren, and their book would be very different from Making Toast. Now, another way to ensure your memoir is completely unique is your writing voice. So your writing voice is your unique style, how you sound on the page. It's vocabulary, tone, point of view, and syntax that makes your writing flow in a particular way. So Making Toast. The Roger Rosenblatt is a very spare reader. I want to just really quickly read you an example. Harris's stoicism is undemonstrative. A strong man, built, wide, and powerful. He carries all 3 children at once in his arms up the stairs. Very spare. Mary Carr, the Liars Club. She is smart and funny, and she's like that in real life too. I took a week-long memoir workshop with her, and one day we were on the line waiting for the restroom, and she looked at what I was wearing, a soft cashmere sweater that was orange, a white t-shirt and white jeans, and she said, "You look just like a creamsicle." Some writers' voices are poetic, descriptive, they use metaphors. Mine is clean and clear. I can't write a literary metaphor to save my life, and when I try, it sounds forced. It's not my voice. So your voice is a critical part of what will make your memoir completely unique. No one else can write in your voice. So to wrap up, your memoir does need to be completely unique and exactly the same. You make it completely unique by writing scenes that bring us into the moments that you have lived in a writing voice, a style that's unique to you. You make it exactly the same by being clear on where your book fits into the publishing landscape, what category it falls into, and going beyond the facts and sharing a universal message. That's how you write a memoir that works. If you've enjoyed these memoir writing tips and would like more, please go to yourstoryfinder.com and sign up for my newsletter. It's chock full of tips to help writers get started, get unstuck, and get their stories out into the world. Next time, we're going to tackle imposter syndrome, what it is, what kinds of writers it affects, and how to combat it. If you've ever been plagued by doubt when you sat down to write, you'll want to catch this one. I look forward to seeing you then. And in the meantime, happy reading and writing. So You Want to Write a Book is part of the Candy Factory mini-series and is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective.
Over the past 8 years, Suzette has been on a mission to help writers clear the fog and cut through the overwhelm so they can move their ideas out of their head and onto the page.
Visit yourstoryfinder.com to learn more about Suzette as well as her writing coach offerings. So You Want to Write a Book is produced by the Candy Factory Collective for So Good Lancaster, another great project of the Candy Factory Co-working in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. The show is produced by Ann Kirby with production support by Anna Tran and Jason Mundock. Administrative support by Ariana Henderson. Find out what makes Lancaster so good at SoGoodLancaster.com. Candy Factory.
Collective.